What stands out to you as the craziest exotic car rental story?
So the week I got married, I had rented out to actually a former Atlanta police officer, my Gallardo and a Ferrari 612 Scaglietti that I had in the rental fleet. And he and his friend were going to be driving around. And I had told him, like, hey, by Wednesday, they'd rent it over the weekend. I said, if you want to extend it for a day or two, that's fine. But by Wednesday, the cars have to be back. And every day he would show up. And even though the original payments, we always wanted them to be on credit cards, but he kept bringing cash to continue. And that was okay because I had, a security deposit and stuff like that. And on Wednesday, he stopped answering the phone. And I'm like calling him every few hours, like, where are the cars? I'm tracking them. And the Gallardo had, the tracker had stopped in Midtown Atlanta. And so I went there and it was at a body shop and the whole front was knocked off of it. And I'm like, well, you guys are not going to repair this. I don't know what he thought, that he was going to somehow be able to get a new bumper and a hood and get this done in like a very short amount of time. But I had it moved to the body shop that I use. So at least that one was safe. But the tracker had gone dead on the 612, which should never have happened because there was an internal capacitance, but they weren't quite as advanced back then as they are now. And so I'm still calling him. And Thursday night, I'm actually at my bachelor party and I get a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. But at that point, I'm answering anything, trying to find these cars. And it was this woman, and she said that her husband had bought my car from my employee that day, and they had paid like a BMW 750 and $15,000 in cash, and he was going to take payments for the rest of it. And I'm like, ma'am, that's everything about that is just wrong, false, and impossible. And she's like, well, we've got your car and we want our stuff back and we want to undo this deal. I said, well, I definitely know we're going to undo whatever deal you think happened because it wasn't a real deal that anybody had the opportunity to make. And she's like, well, I'm a lawyer and possession's 9/10 of the law. And I'm like, no, you're not. And that's absolutely not true. It's a rental car. Possession is 0/10 of ownership. Like, that's not how it works. And so she's like, well, he's your employee. I said, no, he's a customer, and I've got his driver's license right here. And so we went back and forth, and ultimately they didn't want to give it back because I couldn't find the renter because he had all their stuff, and they're hiding the car around town, and occasionally the tracker would blip or somebody would spot it. But again, the problem with the rental car industry is whenever it was rented in one county, but there was a problem in another county, it's not like proper theft. It's theft by conversion, not grand theft auto. And so the cops are useless to help get it back. They're like, this is really a civil dispute. They were allowed to use your car. They're just using it in a different or longer way than you had intended for them to. And so it was such a nightmare. And I ended up, the day of my wedding, I had no idea where the car was or how we were going to get it back. I knew that I had insurance, but the thing about exotic car rental insurance is it was one of the hardest policies in the world to get. But if you ever file a claim, they'll non-renew you. And so I was like, well, I can at least get this loan paid off, but then I have to go out of business and I can't pay the rest of the loans. And so it was a dark, dark place. And I had to leave on our honeymoon and just leave. I called a lawyer that I could barely afford to pay him per hour. And I'm like, look, if you can just follow up on this while I'm gone, see if something happens, let it be the person they can give it to if they agree at whatever point. And I just had to, turn it off and forget about it. And a few days after we got back from the honeymoon, I finally got in touch with the customer who helped me get in touch with the guy who had bought it. The only thing he knew about this guy that he had sold my car to was that his name was Lucky. And Lucky wanted $5,000 for me to return it. And I didn't have $5,000. And I asked the cops that I'd been talking to, like, what should I do? And they go, ask Lucky if he'll take a check. And I said, I don't feel I should remind you, Mr. Officer, that it's a felony to bounce a check knowing that it's not going to clear. He's like, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. I'm like, yeah, maybe you can text me that. And so Lucky was happy to take a check. I gave it, signed it in Mickey Mouse or whatever. And he took it right to the bank. The car was so dead at that point that I had to have it towed. So I was actually, I sat in the lot with him for a while. He had this old Maserati Quattroporte that had been painted like seafoam green. The paint was falling off of it. He was asking me for body shop advice and whatever. And I was just like smiling, trying to get my car loaded up. And so we finally got it back. He got so mad at me, threatened to kill me over the bounce check. And I'm like, dude, that was an extortion payment for the return of stolen property. Like, I am under no obligation to perform here. So have a nice life. And he never came back to kill me. So that was nice. But yeah.
Why is it such a bad business today? You mentioned that earlier, that the car rental business is just it doesn't work. Why is that?
Because now they know that if they just take them across state lines, they can swap the VINs, wrap them, they can get fake titles. There's a whole community around stealing all sorts of cars. They're on Facebook. It's a pretty entertaining thing to watch. But with VINWiki, the way that we're tracking vehicles, and the fact that I am pretty familiar with most of the people that are actively in the exotic car rental industry, there have been a few times over the years where we've been tasked to help people find these missing rental cars. And so I had done some consulting work with a company in Nashville about how to set things up, what kind of cars to target. I'd sold them some cars while I worked at the dealership, and we were trying to, talk through some ideas that they had about expansion and more business, and they started to rent out a lot of people's cars that they didn't own. And that's where the wheels really start to fall off, because there's just not enough profit in the business model for the owner to make some money and then the rental car company to make some money and other marketing costs and stuff like that. And so they had a Huracan that this guy had rented, and he was blasting from Nashville towards Atlanta. And so my friend called me at like 3:00 in the morning on the 4th of July, 2017, I think it was. And he said that he saw that this car was being stolen and asked me to go get it. And I'm like, I'm not a repo, man. I don't work for your company. I'm in no standing to go take this car from whatever villain now has it.
Yeah.
And they had learned at that point that they'd gotten fake insurance documents, a fake driver's license, and those have gotten so good that it can be hard to tell. And so ultimately, I chased the car around. I gave him a glimpse file on my phone so that he could see where my phone was, and then he could look at that and his tracker to tell how close I was getting and stuff like that. And so I chased it all around Atlanta for like 2 or 3 hours, and ended up, it showed up at a shop right next to the body shop that I tended to use. And it was odd because, like 4 or 5 in the morning, this car was, in a lit up shop. And I'm like, I'm not walking in there as me, but I called the cops. I explained to them what was going on. I'd gotten out of bed. I didn't even have my driver's license. I didn't have a wallet with me. And I'm like, look, the car is in there. I know that you don't have probable cause to go in there because of the nature of theft by conversion and stuff like that. I said, but I bet the door's unlocked. Will one of you just walk in there with me so that I don't get shot? And they did. And we walked in there, and they pulled out the trunk liner. They were pulling out wires, cutting things out, all this stuff, trying to find the tracker so that they could then wrap the car, swap the VIN, and then try to sell it to whomever wanted to just drive it, I guess, until the registration expired. And I convinced them that they were in trouble, even though they really weren't. And they gave me the car back, and I kept it overnight and then got it back to the guys in Nashville.
So they're not technically in trouble because you have to pay for your own lawyer to then be able to prove that, and they can delay the court case month after month after month and just bleed you dry.
Well, even then, they would just have to pay for the extended rental and the extra miles. Like, they had permission to use the car.
But isn't there in the contract, it's like, okay, you have to return it by this.
It reminds me of almost squatters' rights, but for cars.
In a way, yes. And like squatter cases, they're a nightmare because, like, if somebody was allowed in, you making them leave can be a very, very complicated thing. And so it's something that you could probably try to criminally prosecute, more so if for a fraud case. And that's what these are also, because there's misrepresentation. And so that's where you do get some legs. But at the end of the day, these guys are just so happy to have their cars back that they just move on in most cases, because you're trying to get blood from a rock. It's just, you don't really even know where these people are or what they're going to do. And so after we made the video about recovering that car, I got, within a week, 100 calls of people that were missing cars in this exact circumstance. And so we started a WhatsApp chat, and every single day somebody does this to one of the rental car companies in at least the Southeast in California.
Can you walk me through how someone is able to steal a car and make it legal and resell it?
He wants to be able to do
I'm
this.
so curious how this
is
works.
what it is. He's
so like
walk us through, step by step, what they do.
Well, so there are several cases where, I bought a Diablo Roadster at one point, and I bought it with no VINs and no title. And this car had been a rental car. It had actually been stolen, taken to Hawaii, repainted. They had figured out some way to get a title. There's a lot of different loopholes in different states about how you can get a bonded title or a mechanics lien title or a court-issued title. And if there's not like a perfectly accessible police report or record of the car being stolen, a lot of times the people that issue those titles don't know. And so you can export them, you can do a lot of things, and then sometimes you can re-import them. So they'll pull the windshields out, put a new VIN on there, and then they'll be able to, if they can get a title through some way or print a fake title, then put it to a state that doesn't check as well, you can end up with a car. Now, one day it generally catches up to them. And so you hear about these cars coming back. And so what had happened with this Diablo was that effectively this dealer had figured out what happened. And he was able to triangulate back to the original owner, buy them out of their ownership of it, and he legitimately owned the car. That being said, I was going to have to go through a process of getting a bonded title and, remaking the VINs and stuff like that. And it happens. Like, there's a lot of times where, I did another one that we bought a cheap Gallardo from the Virginia State Police impound, and it was $35,000 for what would have been a $130,000 car. Now, beat, but it ran and drove, and we ended up having a contest to see who would use it in the coolest way on the channel. And so whoever came up with whatever the audience voted was like the best use of it, they could buy it from me for exactly what I paid for it. So I sold this woman in Arkansas the car for $35,000 because she was going to turn it into the Lambulance and take sick kids around at her hospital with it, which is awesome. And it still does that. Well, it doesn't run that well anymore, but they're working on it. But yeah, that was another car. No VIN, or the wrong VINs. And so I just used a label maker, printed the right VINs for the police inspection and stuff like that, and we're able to get a title for it.